there's a difference, isn't it? That's
They
Well,
have meetings
what's
through
wrong
this
with
week.
so that's 2 hours in the street. That would be the reason.
well, yes, I make a monthly report.
But this would have is that
I remember
yeah, that's something. This is different. This is a monthly report of all the bonds. That's something.
that's, but
That's not a responsibility. That's the administrator's. Right.
Okay. Okay. Close the door. Okay. I got 5 o'clock. All right, go ahead and start. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and let everybody know the Open Meetings Act is posted on the northwest corner of the room. If you get up and read that, there's information is always readily available. And go ahead and do roll call.
Skylar,
Here.
Greg,
Here.
Brad,
Yes.
Deb, here.
Go ahead and rise and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any item listed on this agenda will be open for discussion, consideration, and/or action by the Ainsworth City Council. Item 2, consent agenda. All items approved with passage of one motion. Item A, approved minutes from July 10th, 2019 regular meeting, July 25th, 2019 special meeting, and August 7th, 2019 special meetings. B, approval of claims. C, treasurer's report. D, department head reports. E, consider a special designated liquor license for the Elks Lodge number 1790 to serve alcohol at the Pheasants Forever Banquet to be held at the Ainsworth Conference Center from 10 a.m. on November 8th, 2019 to 2 a.m. on November 9th, 2019. Any item listed on the consent agenda may, by request of any single council member, be considered as a separate item under the regular agenda section of the agenda. Have a motion or a question by council?
We have representative.
Yes.
Anyone she had anything?
Oh, you have anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
First by Brad, second by Skylar. Roll call.
Greg,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Skylar,
Pass. Item 3, mayor's appointments and report. There is no mayor's report right now. Do we want to go ahead and change that then before you? Is that what we want to do for item B?
Brother.
Appointment of city administrator Lisa Schradel as, okay, as a representative for the NCDC Board of Directors and Jeremiah Sullivan as the alternate representative for the NCDC Board of Directors. That's my appointment for that position. Get a motion by anybody to approve or deny, or questions, comments?
Make a motion we approve the recommendation of the mayor for the city administrator to be the primary representative for the city on the North Central Development Center Board of Directors. The alternate being Mayor Jeremiah Sullivan.
So Lisa is primary and then I is alternate. Okay.
I'll second that.
Greg first, second by Brad. Roll call.
Brad,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Skylar, Greg,
Aye.
4-0. All right. Item 4, public hearings. Item A, hearing a resolution of 19-05 to adopt a housing market study as presented by Jennifer Hyatt Miller and Associates. Do you want to go? Do we want to open it all?
I was gonna say, you can open both consent, or, both regular items for the comprehensive plan and the housing study. I can run through both of those documents with you guys if you would like. Is that-
Yeah, I'll just run through, I'll open them both and then we can just go from there. And then, the hearing a resolution of 19-06 to adopt a comprehensive development plan pursuant to Nebraska provisions, 19-901 as presented by Jennifer Hyatt Miller and Associates. Open that.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Hyatt. I am the community planner for Miller and Associates out of Kearney. And we were contracted with you guys to do a housing study and comprehensive planning process that we've done throughout the past 2 years. And my plan was just to kind of give you highlights and then open for questions. Is that an okay forum for you guys? Okay, so I'll start with your housing study. We, Miller and Associates, did a windshield review of the housing study. We looked at a third of the housing stock, which is a random sampling to give us an overall view of the housing situation in Ainsworth, which we ultimately rated at a 3.12 out of 5, which is average. And we found a pretty good housing stock overall. The quality is solid. Most of the houses fit approximately what we would expect to see in western Nebraska. And of course, then you do, like every other community, have some problem properties as well. One of the things that I wanted to point out is the overall housing age. Again, like most communities in Nebraska, you have an aging housing stock with a large percentage of your housing being built 40 years or at least 40 years ago, but the largest chunk being built before 1930. That's pretty typical for rural Nebraska as well. Honestly, that's actually just pretty typical for Nebraska. We can include some of the urban area into that statistic as well. We also did a housing assessment need located on page, look back. Oh, sorry guys. Thought I had it tabbed.
18?
Yeah, 18, thank you. So we looked at 2 different statistics. Throughout the planning process, we heard from multiple people that felt that the ACS and census data that were presented was no longer entirely accurate for the reflection of Ainsworth. That data shows a decline in the community, but it appears that overall in the last few years especially, you've seen an influx of people. So we looked at 2 different scenarios, the first being a static growth. So if Ainsworth neither grew nor shrank and stayed the same for the next 10 years, because this housing study is a projection from technically 11 years, so 2019 to 2030. And because of the subpar housing stock that already does exist, plus just given those next 10 years where a few more houses might potentially fall off the market, that shows that 71 new housing units would need to be built in Ainsworth to maintain the current housing stock necessary to house the people who are here at this point. However, like I said, the thing that we heard overall was that you had an influx of people and you have a growth mentality. You don't want to stay static. You would like to grow in this next 10 years. So given your historic trends and the positive outlook of the community thus far, we projected out a 0.5% annual growth rate, which is approximately 9 to 10 people per year for the next 10 years. And if that were to continue to happen, or if that projection became true, you would actually be looking at a need of about 243 houses overall. Now, of course, I'm not saying go build all 243 of these houses in the next 5 years. This would be a slow process that you would start working on, but it's not surprising. That number might look large, but if you think about the fact that you have such a high number of housing units that are approximately 100 years of age, or most definitely will be 100 years of age by 2020, the fact that you need that many does kind of fall into, kind of fall in line with the way the data lines up. And I'm also not up here saying that every 100-year-old house is in terrible condition. People do take care of their houses and maintain them, but given the tract, that would be appropriate. And that's the main reason for your housing study, is to kind of do those projections out, look at the quality that you have. The rest of the housing study does have a bunch of statistical data and analysis in it as well. Things like, according to the 2010 census, the average person per household was 2.8 for an owner-occupied household and 1.93 for a renter-occupied household. You guys have kind of a smaller household size, so normally we see closer to a 3 point something. So that indicated that you have a lot of people living alone, and so that might be a housing need that you would want to look to address at some point. Smaller units, something in that vein. Are there any questions on the housing study? That's the overall takeaway from it.
Were you saying, so you think that the projection of the city is basically static?
No, what I'm saying is I create a static line,
Oh, okay.
just to show, even if you guys didn't do anything, housing would still need to be built. Housing still needs to be a priority, which when we turn our attention to the comprehensive plan, you'll hear that housing was actually identified as one of the top priorities in the community. But I like to set that 0-0 status because people think, well, if we stay the same, the housing stock that we already have meets the needs of our people. However, some of it already actually does not, though people are living in it, and over the next 10 years, a bunch of that housing could potentially fall off. So I like to show that even if you don't do anything else from today until 10 years from now, you'll still need to focus on housing. Okay. If you would turn your attention to the comprehensive plan. So overall, a housing study typically goes hand in hand with comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is your development outlook for the next 10 years. It is required by statute. If you have zoning, you must have a comprehensive plan. And planning standards recommend that you update it every 10 years, which was basically the process that we engaged in over this past 2 years. We looked at your old planning documents, did an update of your new planning documents, and created new projections and goals utilizing the public input process. You had 4 public input meetings that were held throughout this planning period. They were well attended. The public input was strong. We did get a lot of good information out of that. And then we were able to work with Lisa a lot on this too, to kind of help ascertain information that I couldn't have known previous. The tenets of Miller and Associates comprehensive plan is that it is the community's comprehensive plan, and I can come in and tell you what all the data can say in the world, but ultimately that really doesn't always reflect what's actually happening in a community. So it's made up of five main points: your community profile, facilities and infrastructure, energy and natural resources, and then land use and annexation, which is the biggest portion, like the biggest crux of your comprehensive plan, and then public input and goals, which is the next biggest. So I'll kind of skim through the other stuff. It's interesting reading. It's back on like the historic data of your community, the history of your community, and then kind of an inventory of what's existing in the community. So we can start with on page 9, we have a population history of Ainsworth. As I mentioned earlier, you guys have seen kind of a fluctuation in population, currently trending towards decline over the past 30 to 40 years. You did see a big boom in the 80s, which is kind of typical of rural Nebraska, and then of course the crash in the 90s after the agricultural recession hit, and that also is well reflected in almost every community in Nebraska. On page 13, we put together a few different population projection scenarios. The first one that I looked at is if the same thing in the next decade happened as what happened in the past decade, what that would look like. Between 2000 and 2010, you had a decline of 0.74%. So if we brought that out to 2019, you can see the conclusion rate there. I also looked at kind of and then if you look at trend 4, that's 1930 to 2010. It's an 80-year time frame that planning standards considers a lifetime. So overall, you guys actually saw an increase in lifetime standards. And then I wanted to show that increase of 0.5% and then a decrease of 0.5%, given the current feedback that I heard. We did hear that the growth rate was either not declining as much or potentially growing. So I wanted to show both of those scenarios and what those would look like. On page 20, you have a chart and overview of household income. Ainsworth's median income, according to the 2013 through 2017 American Community Survey data, was $40,781, which is basically on line with Brown County's median income, which is $42,773. And then below the Nebraska median average of $56,675. On page 27, I always find this kind of an interesting table. It's your employed population by industry, according, again, to that American Community Survey. And a lot of your population base is employed in the educational services, healthcare, and social assistance, as well as arts, entertainment, recreation, accommodations, and food services, and the retail trade. I think that's kind of an interesting statistic to look through. And then the next section is facilities and infrastructure services that the community provides. These are things that you guys already know. You live here, you know where your churches are, your school, your fire department, but state statute requires that we list these out in the comprehensive plan, so I'm not gonna run all the way through them. And the other section required by state statute, because people always ask me, why is this in here? Why do I care? Because the legislature told us we had to, is the energy and natural resources section. So in here, we talk about, on page 60, we have the electrical power consumption by industry in the community, as well as utilization of renewable energy sources, and then a rundown of the current climate and soil types of the community itself. And a lot of interesting maps that I'm gonna hold up because you guys can look through them. So on chapter 4 is, of course, the land use and annexation. Really the reason that the state legislature decided that planning had to be done in Nebraska is because people were starting to zone and had no idea what uses they were zoning through and what their community actually looked like. So on page, technically page 81, you'll see figure 4.1. I'm gonna kind of pop this out. Miller and Associates went through and did a complete inventory of existing uses throughout the entire community, addressing public, single-family, multifamily, commercial use, light industrial, quasi-public, recreational, agricultural. And then the thing in here that I'd like to point out is the vacant lots. So one of the goals in the section that we'll talk about next is housing and commercial development. And the important thing to do first when you're considering housing and vacant, or housing and commercial use, is to infill first before doing any kind of annexation use, because it's the cheapest option, to be frank, for your community. Your infrastructure is already there. So if you look through your map though, you'll see that there are not that many lots that are actually vacant in the city. And a lot of them that are maybe just a single lot. And they're a single lot within kind of the core of the city, which means that they're probably approximately 100 by 50 foot lots, which are not necessarily conducive to modern housing needs. So those are things that we kind of address throughout the housing study and then the goals and stuff too, of ways to maybe beautify those lots so that they don't become nuisance properties for the community or cease to become nuisance properties if they already are. And then the biggest map in the comprehensive plan is your future land use map. We had an entire public input meeting dedicated to working towards creating this future land use. And the annexation map, which is figure 4.2b, also kind of sits with this future land use. So what we did was we asked the participants of the public input meeting to take the word never out of their vocabulary. Anything that they could think of was an open option. So that land was always available for sale. It's a very high level worksheet, like workshop, and I understand that, but that land is always available. That commercial business is coming into town. And keeping that in mind, kind of work through where the best development might occur and what the community really should probably look like. And when you look through your map, what you'll see is a solid core of residential housing, because the top priority of the community was developing a housing need. This should be available online too, because I know that this is a very small map for everyone to kind of look through. So that, along with your annexation map, which should be page 88, well, 89, but our maps don't have page numbers. That's future. I'm sorry, 99, not 88. Can't read the page. We identified five main areas that would be most useful for annexation should the time come. I know annexation is a hot button topic, but the legislature requires us to work through these statements. So this was a step that we had to take in the planning process. We identified 5 potential areas that could lead to, that could be usable annexation areas. Area 1 and 2 were primed for residential development, and then areas 3, 4, and 5 were potential commercial development. You'll notice the commercial development sits along the highway. So that's typically where commercial industries would be looking for. Finally, we have your public input and goals. We did a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, in your first public input meeting to ascertain the feelings the residents had of the community. We took that SWOT analysis and then all of the input that we heard from the community, so that in our very last meeting, we sat down and talked about priorities. Priorities for Ainsworth, really the priority for Ainsworth was improve the housing market. And then also begin on commercial development. So you'll see that improving the existing housing market is your first goal in there. The way that this is set up is underneath the goal, you have a short synopsis of the findings and then action steps to start implementing those goals. Some of those action steps, as I already mentioned, like inventory of the infill lots, that's been done on your existing land use map. Work with local businesses to identify housing needs from their perspective. Potentially develop a purchase, rehab, resell program. Those are all listed out through there. Another thing that kind of came up a few times was improving public infrastructure. that's also just always a goal that planning, like you should just always be looking to make sure that your infrastructure is being maintained and updated, to try and, you know, not have water mains break in the middle of the street and cause a bunch of problems, that kind of stuff. I see the sheepish looks. That has happened to every community I have worked with. Every community I have worked with has a story that their street blew up. Don't worry about it. And then promote commercial development. And then the other thing that I really heard from a lot of people was enhancing amenities in the community and promoting tourism. The main thing that I heard was a splash pad potentially, and then trying to really capitalize on being a community that sits on the Cowboy Trail. Those were the things that came up the most. And then finally, I put this in here, Lisa's already hard to work on this, but develop a marketing campaign. You guys have already now got your website, you started on your branding, so really you're a decent way through this goal already, but she didn't do that until after we had started writing the plot line, so it's in there. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Yeah? Yes.
So with all your recommendations here, have you assigned the cost of all of these and where the money's gonna come from?
That is not a part of the process in the comprehensive plan. That's when they take the next steps and do strategic planning on these goals.
That will happen.
That will be up to your city council as they start having the opportunity to digest this. They've only recently got the comprehensive plan, so they'll have a chance to digest it and then start setting those.
I just want to make sure that the plans are financially feasible.
Right. Well, I worked pretty hard to make sure that the action steps were small enough to be able to step forward into the future on that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
You said your growth factor of 1.5 was going to be 240 units. Is that right? You had
Yes.
Okay.
With
So
the projection.
just out of curiosity, keep working with other communities. Is there anybody reaching that level in
Typically-
the rural sector of growth?
Typically, no.
Okay.
But it's something to work for. And like I said, given the public input that I heard of people actually kind of starting to come into Ainsworth, it is actually an aggressive growth rate that I set here. Kind of high. Normally I stick to about 0.25% per year, but we bumped up given the public input and kind of some of the directions that I was seeing in the data. Anything else? So your planning commission recommended approval, subject to an update on page 56 in your telecommunications. Evidently, from the time that we first started getting some data gathering done to the time that we published this, you had a telecommunications provider change, or we got the first step wrong. Either way, it is updated. The telecommunications now reflects the Vero Wireless and Three Rivers Communication provide your telephone and internet services, and why it's important to keep building on that broadband and telecommunications system, basically, because pretty much the internet is how a lot of people will be accessing work from here on out, and that will only grow stronger. So that is updated, subject to your planning commission. I present your housing market analysis, your housing market study, and your comprehensive plan for your consideration and approval.
Thank you, Chair. Questions, comments? Council? Whole business, we have none. Item 6, regular agenda. Item A, consider bids received and bid recommendations regarding the pool filter replacement project, Larry Steele, Miller and Associates.
Well, we rebid the project, open bids a week ago. We were thinking that we were gonna have a board meeting then and we could make our recommendations, but maybe it was a good thing since they were still a little bit higher than I was hoping for. So we had two bidders this time, Industrial Process Technology. They bid $93,039. Hackle Construction also bid, and they were at $168,000. And our estimate was about 80,000 is what we had anticipated, and that was, you know, close to a year ago that we'd come up with that number. So there's been a little bit of inflation. So after the bid opening, we contacted the contractor to see if there was any voluntary things that maybe the city could take on or help participate in. And so we had a list of items that we'd come up with there, which was the excavation and backfill for the underground tank. We had an underground tank for the backwash tank. And that was, he offered $2,449 credit for that if the city would come in and actually dig that in. Well, in the meantime, Brad went out and found out the sewer isn't quite as deep as what the drawings that I had showed. Came up with about 4.5 feet to the top of the pipe. The drawings that I had, the original drawings from Kirkland Michael, indicated that pipe should be about 5 feet 10 inches below the surface. And so, based on that, we're not going to be able to bury this backwash tank. So the other option is to put a tank above grade, and then we'll just connect it to the sewer system that way. So we would have that credit of that amount. Seeding and sodding, the city could go ahead and do that. They offered a credit of $1,374 for that credit. Forklift provided by the city to help lift up the filter tank and put it in place. I think we can do that with your front end loader. You've got forks for that, so that would be another option. $350 for that. Concrete testing, we don't have a whole bunch of concrete, but we usually include the testing in the contract. But if your concrete supplier is pretty regular on providing that concrete, we like to have a little entrained air in there. And so that's usually why we have that testing. And in fact, I think your concrete supplier may be able to do that test to verify he's meeting our spec. We'd have to visit with him. But if we didn't have to do that testing, there's a $500 credit for that. The state requires us to label the pipes. You know, this is the backwash pipe, this is the direction water's going, that type of stuff. Contractor would give us $680 if the city would like to do that. They don't have to be special decals or anything, but that's usually what we put in our spec, so we know what those pipes are being used for. And then the final option that we looked at was we'd put some structural stoops. I've raised the deck to be the same level as the floor inside the mechanical room. Just because I wanted to get the extra height because of the sewer system, but like I say, that unfortunately came out. So we thought if we just drop that maybe an inch, now we won't have the frost heat thaw, so we can still get through the doors. In fact, your door, at least on the mechanical room, opens inward. Your other door on the boiler opens out, is that correct? So that one would be the only concern, but if we drop that about an inch, we won't have that issue. And so if we accept these deductions, then the contract price would be $84,123. So it's about $4,000 over what we have in budget. But I don't think we're gonna, there's just not much else we can take out. I mean, so based on that, if your budget allows, it's our recommendation that you go ahead and award the contract to Industrial Process Technology.
Questions?
Brad, you visited with him. You guys feel comfortable with these items? You guys can complete these? Okay.
those other items too. But you was able to get to where you're at. You know, like Bob probably what you've got. Already, we got in the sheets instead of, these were additional items.
These were items that we could take out.
Yeah, additional from what is.
Yeah, in addition to, we actually, when we rebid the project, we have the city forces going in to do the demo work, to take out the piping, the pumps, removing the existing concrete deck that's in front of the mechanical room and what have you. So, yeah, it's in addition to those items that the city was already gonna do that.
Okay.
The industrial process technology, that's the guy that's out of Mitchell, South Dakota.
Yes. And he actually did something similar we did down in Nelson, Nebraska. They had a vacuum PE filter system and we're having problems with it and wanted to take that out. So this is pretty much the same thing as what we had done down there. The pump's a little different situation. The pump that down there was above the water level, so we had to have a self-priming pump. This pump, we're gonna have a flooded suction pump. So now you don't have to prime it, basically. It's a much easier pump to start, and it typically lasts longer than a self-priming pump.
If they were awarded this contract, when will they start on it, you know?
He wants to
When-
get,
The completion date.
he wants to get started on it. The completion date we have is May of next year, that they need to be completed. So you can get your pool up and open in time, you know, for your, weather permitting, of course, for your opening day. I think you open, Memorial weekend usually.
You brought up that comment about the sewer line being higher than we thought. That sewer line being higher than we thought, is that gonna be any problem in the future going forward, or?
No, no. It's just, I've got a tank that I was gonna bury that was 51 inches tall. And so in order to get that low grade, and plus you're bringing it out the bottom of the tank, I just don't have the elevation that I need to actually bury this tank that we have specified. The only disadvantage is you'll have a tank that's, we found one that's about 80 inches tall. And the fence is a 6-foot fence, so it's 72 inches tall. And the fence, we have privacy slats in it, so it's kind of screening it. So you won't necessarily see the filter, for example. So that's the only disadvantage of having an above ground tank.
Now, if that don't get drained or something, is there a problem with it freezing?
It's gonna be connected right to the sewer. So when you backwash that filter, it'll come into the tank. And what I need is, my pump's about a little over 300 gallons a minute. Your sewer system can handle about 300 gallons a minute. Well, so we need to store some of that and slowly let it go in. So we've designed it for about 120 gallons a minute coming out of the tank. But it'll be going 300 gallons a minute coming into the tank. So based on that, we can get a third of that volume out before we get the tank fully, or the filter fully backwash.
Yeah, Brad and I met with Lori multiple times, so we're in support of his recommendation.
Any more questions, comments, council?
Just one more. I know we've been talking about expanding our pool, maybe making a new pool. Is this something that we can transfer over into a new swimming pool facility if it's larger?
Well, actually, I got an example for you. Cambridge, for example, they're looking to redo their swimming pool. They're gonna do a major remodel on it. About 5 years ago, I helped them come up with a filter to meet their current requirements. Well, the new regulations have stepped up the recirculation rate, so when we go through this modification to their swimming pool, they will have to up the recirculation rate. So we're gonna use their existing pump and filter, plus we're gonna add another pump and another filter to get the recirculation rate up to what it needs to be. So to answer your question, yes, you will be able to use this, we would be able to incorporate that into a new pool system.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else? I guess I should have got to item B2, presentation, consideration of pool study for planning purposes, but Larry did that too, so I just want to make sure. Yeah.
You wanna go ahead?
Do we
and
want to
make-
go ahead and vote or you want to wait? Okay, go ahead. So item B, presentation, consideration of pool study for planning purposes by Larry Steele, Miller and Associates.
Okay. What we did for Cambridge, for example, is we did an evaluation. And this is just a sample contract, if you will, the items. So what we've done in the past is we do a feasibility study or a pool evaluation, whatever you want to call it. So what we try to do is do a couple of site inspections. I'm a little more familiar with your pool, so maybe I've got some of the information I need. But what we'll do is identify what are your deficiencies. For example, you're losing water. Maybe your bathhouse doesn't meet the current ADA requirements. Your wading pool doesn't meet the current ADA requirements. So we'll come up with all the deficiencies that we come up with. And then the next step of the report would be to develop costs for what is it going to take to basically bring your pool up to today's standards might be one option that we would look at. Meet all the ADA requirements, the recirculation, what would have to be done, and then what we'll do is put a cost to that. Maybe you want to do another option like I brought a section of gutter with me, stainless steel gutter. Maybe Cambridge here again is going to be replacing their gutter, or they've got skimmers like you do. What we're going to do is come in and cut about 18 inches at the top of the wall off. And then we'll come back and ground in a stainless steel gutter. And what this does is this is your piping. So the skimmers is the water flowing over the top of the gutter. And then it collects in this tube back here. And then we have a couple connections that go back to the surge tank. And then this tube in the front is the treated water coming back out to the pool. So this goes all the way around the outside of your pool. And then there's an inlet right here that's going to allow the treated water to be distributed around your pool. Right now you've got a wall inlet maybe every 20 feet. So these would be about every 3 foot, and they're 45-degree angle down. So we've got treated water coming all the way around your swimming pool. There is a couple pipes that's connected to this, but you don't have a continuous pipe all the way around your pool because that's what the stainless steel gutter is. So we could compare going in, I think your piping's bad, you've got flakes coming out, so you know you're probably losing water through those pipes. So we would compare putting this on to actually going around and replacing all the piping. And then you've got that comparison. Another option that we could look at is comparing, maybe you want to replace your pool and just update your bathhouse. We could look at that option, a new pool about the same square footage and what have you that you have now, and update your bathhouse. So that might be the next option you want to look at. And you might want to flip that around. Maybe we want to update the pool and replace the bathhouse. And then the final one we would look at is make you want a new pool and a bathhouse. Obviously, an advantage of the new pool and bathhouse, you can look at other locations. So that's, so I guess I would work with you or the council or with Lisa to figure out exactly what you want for a scope of a study, an evaluation of your pool. Then we'll come back and deliver that report to you, and we can provide public input for those. We could help the city come up with a survey, for example. We've done some surveys with SurveyMonkey now, where you can kind of ask the citizens, hey, what do you want? Do you want to fix the pool? Do you want a new pool? How would you pay for it? So there could be several options in the survey to figure out what is the public want also.
We can help assist with live public input the same way we did with comp plan too, if that was something that you guys would be interested in.
So, and then the other thing I have here for you is, there are some grants out there. I think we got 3 of them there this time. So here's a couple of common grants here. There's the Nebraska Game and Parks, they've got the Land and Water grant. Typically, that grant, I don't know how good that would rank, if you will, on a repair to a pool, for example, if you wanted to do those different options. I would think that they would at least look at it because you're addressing the ADA, you're modernizing your facility. That grant, typically, you might get about $100,000 from them. This grant is out, and is basically, it doesn't pay until the project's complete, so it's a reimbursement type of a grant rather than, they pay as you go along. The other grant is this Civic and Community Center financing fund. And they do also include swimming pools in that. It's a substantially larger grant. This last year, it was for your community your size, it was $562,000. It is a 1-to-1 match, but it is a substantial amount of money where you can spend $500,000 and get basically $1 million in project funding, if you will. We do assist communities in applying for these grants.
Larry, can I interrupt you?
Yes, you can.
With that CCCFF grant, the first step is actually doing a feasibility study for the pool. Larry's will be part of that, and then we can kind of look through the public input section of that as well. Just, it is step 1. And basically, the state has indicated that if you don't do that step 1, it's such a competitive grant that you are most likely not going to be funded with that. Just so that you're aware that there are a few extra little components to that.
So the feasibility would be part of the pool study that you're talking about?
This is, yeah, you can call it a feasibility study, you can call it a pool evaluation, it's all the same.
Yep, but it does, for the CCCF, it does require that public input section that Larry was talking about. Like, you will have to do something for that, just.
But also under that planning activity, there's up to $15,000 grant for that, correct?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And that's 50-50 match also.
It is. The one thing to keep in mind with that grant is the dates, the application dates, and technically you can't start on that project until you actually get awarded. So if we want to go down there, we would be looking at next year to actually start this evaluation. And I guess I didn't tell you costs. I did talk to Reed and he said, you know, you guys have been a pretty good client, so we could do this study that I've handed out here, for $4,200.
One of the reasons that I've been talking to Larry about this is just, in my 4 years at the city office, it just seems like you don't have a good vision. And everybody knows that the pool needs something done. We don't know if we need to repair it, if we want to build a new one, you know, what that one should look like. And so, I guess my thought was, in terms of capital improvement planning, you know, a document like this would be very helpful, even if we don't intend to make that step for even 10 years, let's say. But, I mean, it kind of provides a vision or a guide, a little price tag on it, so you kind of know the comparisons and what, might help us in trying to make an informed decision moving forward, what to do with it.
That study would also kind of help out, kind of look in the future to see what the youth is and what is pool going to be used, you know, 5 to 6 years from now. Because our young kids declining, and we're going to spend a lot of money on a pool, but there's not going to be anybody here in 10, 15 years to have to use it. So the study would help kind of look at that aspect of the project too.
Well, I guess I haven't included, you know, like, you're asking about population
Yeah.
and age
And
and
maybe that's what
stuff,
she was
but-
kind of talking
but,
about. You
yeah,
know, the future
we've
and-
already done some of that, so
Yeah.
I could incorporate that pretty easy into the study.
You know, what is our population of our young kids now, and what has it done over the last 10 or 15 years? Are they leaving? Are the families getting smaller? You know, that'd be something I'd like to know,
Mhm.
put that kind of money out for.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like Larry and Jennifer said too, public input session or Survey Monkey, kind of something to get some actual, responses from people to see what it is that they would like to see happen.
Yeah, CCCFF really looks towards that public participation. And then a little bit to just answer your question, on page 10 of your comprehensive plan, I have a 2000 to 2010 population comparison, looking at every cohort that the census looks at from under 5 to 85 years, and you've actually seen a percent increase in every category of those. Wait, not every category, sorry, almost every. So, of the youth that you were kind of looking at. And so that's something we can easily incorporate into that feasibility study for your consideration.
Going back to the strategic plan, the Brown County Community Foundation has been working on through the years, that the recreation has always been a huge topic of focus, and, with that is usually the discussion of the pool. So, I just think this is another step forward in that direction in terms of trying to utilize resources and get some planning back in it for everybody.
You said 42 on that, right, Larry?
Yep.
There was a pool study that was actually conducted a few years ago, and I don't know who actually conducted that, but just so you know, there is something out there to build upon. I know things have changed.
Yeah.
but-
JDO, I think, performed that study. It doesn't quite have all the elements in it that Larry was talking about. I mean, I think it kind of describes some of the issues with the pool at that time, but it doesn't really give you the full scope of, this is the price tag to fix those things, and then these are the other options that you can do to either fix it or go in new directions, or,
I don't know that I've ever seen this study. I knew about it, but I never.
It did cover some of the prices, except the council did about one minor thing, and like replacing the diving board, and that was it. It was like $160,000 to $200,000 to bring it up to lasting another 20 years or whatever. And they
Something to
replaced
build
the
on.
diving board.
study had been done. And then for the first 5 years I was here, I did get prices and comparisons and stuff, but, and we had fundraisers, people wanted a new pool, but, you know, that may not be the case anymore, I don't know.
There's also the Survey Monkey, Jerry might have some of that too. And when you're talking about your community input sessions, there was actually a group that did Survey Monkey surveys on the pool at that time. So again, you know, maybe that's a core group if you have a focus group or something that, you know, start of a list of some names.
Thank you.
We've taken care of the pool last 20-some years, I've seen a decline in it. And it's just like Lisa said, well, yeah, we said, yeah, we'll do this, and then we're put a little bit into it. But they never, the return lines, every year we take them out, take the rust out, start up, put full again. So that rust, something's got to be done, or I bet you 10 years that pool will not be right. The way it is now.
What do you mean decline revenue?
Just in things that go wrong. I mean, we fix this.
You're talking
It's not- I
about
call
the
it
structure
maintenance.
itself there.
You don't turn this on or you're gonna blow this. You don't do this or this is gonna blow this. I mean, it just, it's declining. It has. I mean, it's what, 50-year-old pool, something like that?
It was built in 61.
61.
Oh, yeah.
Or 67.
She on decline.
All right, any more questions, comments, concerns, public or board or council? Go ahead and take a motion on item A first, if you do anything from council.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid, roll the bid.
It's 93,000.
93,000,
Oh, wait.
this is gonna be.
No,
84.
84, 123, industrial process technology.
First by Brad, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Deb, roll call.
Deb?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
And item B, does council want to make a decision on that, or what do you?
And that's up to you guys. I mean, you certainly don't have to vote on that today. I just Larry offered to
Yeah.
present, so if it's something you want to consider, we can certainly try to discuss it further at the budget workshop and see what, you want to do at that time, or.
It would be a good idea to get it going, though, if we did do it, so we could meet some of these deadlines for what the CC's FF stuff, correct?
Well, we did grant
Because we need it.
for the first part of the process, and we applied for a grant for, if we were to move forward, correct? It could be two
Yeah,
different
yeah,
grants.
because there's a planning grant, and then there's the construction grant. The planning grant is what, 15,000 or something like that. And then we've got that construction grant that was, so we could move forward and try to get a grant. And basically, if we did 4,200, then we would have a grant application for 2,100.
We'll move forward with that. You want to make a motion then to approve the 4,200 for the study, right?
Is this on the basis that we get the grant, or is it just?
Yeah, do you want to wait for the grant? Then we can wait on actually
Okay.
voting on this, because we can't do anything until we
get it back.
Until we get approved on the grant, so you're looking January to do your initial study, and then
Okay.
ask for applications in February, and then March they approve them, so.
Can we get the grant through the Nebraska Game Parks for the planning process? And then through CCCFF for the actual facility? Or they have to be the city?
I don't know that Game Parks has a planning grant.
Okay.
So, and this might be a question for you, Jennifer, maybe.
I will try. I'm not our grant administrator.
Okay, so if we apply for these funds, it's every 2 years, correct?
Yes,
Just so that
so,
everybody knows that.
well, and so what happens, is you apply for your CCCF planning grant, and you have up to 2 years to complete that feasibility study. And then you can apply for your build process, your phase 2. But if we can jump on the ball and actually get the planning phase done in year 1, like in 2020, then you can apply for your phase 2 in 2021. So it doesn't have to be that 2-year gap period, but you, like, we have one community that applied and then didn't have the capacity to actually keep moving forward on the application or on the actual process. So they have 2 years to get that done. But I don't, Larry, how long does your part of the study, feasibility study, how long does that typically take you?
It shouldn't take too long, because like I say, I'm pretty familiar with the pool. I've helped change the boiler, and we're looking at the filter, and we put the chlorinator in last year or the year before, so I'm fairly familiar with it, so I don't think it'll take very long to actually do the report.
Okay, so you guys could be looking at a 2020, 2021 application based on phase 2.
So do we need to do anything with that, or just?
Start on the grant process first.
Yep.
We'll have Ashley reach out.
Yep,
Our
there you
actual
go.
grant writer.
I was just gonna close it, and move closer. You guys got a drive?
Yes, 3 hours.
I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearings then on resolution 1905-05 and 1906. If there's nobody, more questions, comments, or concern from anybody. I'll go ahead and close that at 1800. Okay. Oh, yeah, we have the paperwork. All right. And get a motion then by council to. All right, we go ahead and do item A then, public hearings, a resolution of the city council, the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska, adopting a housing market study. Be it resolved by the mayor and the city council of the city of Ainsworth, Brown County, Nebraska as follows, whereas the city council of the city of Ainsworth City Council is in receipt of a final report of the planning commission of the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska, planning commission, recommending that the city council approve and adopt a housing market study for the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska. Housing study. Said housing study having been prepared by Miller and Associates Consulting Engineers, whereas the city council was presented with and held a public hearing on the housing study, said housing study being attached to this resolution is Exhibit A and incorporated herein by this reference, and whereas after considering the advice of the planning commission and after a public hearing, the city council decided to approve and adopt the housing study. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska, that 1, recitals and findings set forth above be incorporated herein, and 2, the city council hereby approves and adopts the housing study prepared by Miller and Associates Council Engineers for the city of Ainsworth. And witness there, whereof the city council of the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska has passed and adopted a resolution on this day, August 21st, 2019. To approve that. All
So
of that.
moved.
Sorry that was so long.
That's all right.
The comp plan will be real fun.
Maybe. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
So roll call?
Skylar?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Deb?
All right, item B. Resolution number 19-06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Ainsworth, Nebraska, adopting a comprehensive development plan pursuant to Nebraska Revision 19-901. Be it resolved by the mayor and the City Council of the City of Ainsworth, Brown County, Nebraska as follows. Whereas the City Council of the City of Ainsworth City Council is in receipt of the final report of the Planning Commission of the City of Ainsworth, Nebraska, recommending that the City Council approve and adopt a comprehensive development plan as defined as Nebraska Revision Statute 19-903 for the City of Ainsworth, Nebraska. Said comprehensive plan having been prepared by Miller Associates and Consulting Engineers, PC. Whereas the City Council pursuant to Nebraska Revision Statute 19-904 was presented with and held a public hearing on a comprehensive plan. Said comprehensive plan being attached to this resolution as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by this reference, and whereas after considering the advice of the planning commission and after a public hearing, the city council decided to approve and adopt the comprehensive plan, now therefore be resolved by the city council of the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska, that one, the recitals and findings set forth above be incorporated herein, and two, the city council hereby approves and adopts a comprehensive plan prepared by Miller and Associates Consulting Engineers for the city of Ainsworth pursuant to Nebraska Revision Statute 19-904, in witness whereof the city council of Ainsworth, Nebraska has passed and adopted this resolution on the 21st of August 2019. Motion to approve.
Move to do that.
Skylar for second.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Craig?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
Second, put a date in on that one too. Thank you, Jennifer, Larry.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Item C, discuss and consider the agreement for economic development program service in North Central Development Center. Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Good for you.
Thank you.
Have a good trip home.
All right.
Have a good night. Thank you guys for allowing us to do your comp plan.
See, yeah. Okay. I got the contracts here already for us to go on and sign. Our side, just need Kim, get Kim's signature for the contracts. And Greg, yep, got those done, those are ready.
You guys know the contract and stuff, and
We reviewed it initially, it hasn't changed since we first went through it, hasn't, from back in,
Just what we decided then for funding. That
right,
was added,
change,
but
you ever
everything
change
is-
that
Yep.
from what we talked about? That's the same version we had before.
Is it the-
Mhm.
I think it's item D that Magda was the one we edited for what we agreed upon for the financing.
One copy.
But everything else should stay the same.
okay, thank you.
One of the main, I think one of the things we've talked about as an NCDC board is just, I know CART committee is working with Rick or somebody on the policies and procedures for the contract so that we all know, everybody's on the same page about whose responsibility it is for each portion of the LBA 40 process. So I think that's, the contract isn't real clear on every step of the process. We just want to make sure everybody's clear on what the NCDC does to get it to which point, and then at which point does the program administrator take over, get it to the council, and that sort of thing. So I think, is that something I think you guys have been?
We have not done anything simply because there was no contract signed. And
Okay.
until both parties were on board, we weren't gonna spend time doing something for nothing.
Sure. And, our weight was that we were in the process of, advertising, doing interviews, and we've got a person in place. So I think as far as our board goes, we're ready to start fulfilling.
Yeah, I think we've
Fulfilling contracts.
done what the council directed us to do, took a little bit of time, everything that goes on and get the right things done, so, it's just a matter of signing it, we're ready to roll.
council want to review that contract at all, any council?
I did.
Okay.
I looked at it. The one question I did have on it, and again, since it was prepared by car committee and legal, the only question I had is under one area there. Question I have is on the documentation under 5B. Basically, all the records will be turned over to the city and in the city records, which is correct. But then it says, all program documents and records retained by NCDC shall be made available upon request, and in particular in connection with the annual audit of the program. What documents and records would that be?
I don't know. We're turning everything over on each applicant.
But
One
again,
thing
you guys
is
have
other-
NCDC has other, you call it clients or whatever though, right?
But that would be part of the city's information.
No, this is only for the eligible 40.
Right. Does that make sense? I mean, it kind of, in one sentence, it says it's all turned over to the city has everything, but then it says all the, need to be made available, and I didn't know what there would be left.
I don't know what there would be.
And that was the only question I had, but again, it was prepared by the attorney Rick Edgar and reviewed by your committee. It was just a question I had. Minor deal, because again, the originals all go back to the city anyway, so.
And again, the city will be responsible for all the funding and, you know,
But I think it goes
allocating all the funding.
back to clarification you were talking about,
Yeah,
procedures.
that's it. I think that's
Procedures,
the one thing our
clarify
board wants to see is just that we've got, within this, you know, we've got a contract, that's good, that kind of is the nuts and bolts, but we need the policies and procedures as far, and that, it sounds like they were waiting for the contract to be signed, and like I said, we didn't want to do that until we know we'd be able to fulfill our end of that contract, so, now that we've got that in place, if they want to, if the park wants to take that back over, work with Rick, or however they want to do that, and work with Kristen to put together the policies and procedures, basically just so everybody knows, hey, here's what we're following. This is our guideline managing program. So I think that's the only thing that that we'd like to at least have. That way we're all on the same page going forward.
And I talked to Chris anyway, I guess, the committee as a whole hasn't met since any of this. But,
Yeah.
Chris and I visited the other day about the fact that, once the contract was signed, obviously, there's a lot of references in there that are gonna have to change, because it's still referring to the program administrator as the NCDC director and things like that, so.
Right.
We talked about the fact that once it's signed, the CARC will again, start looking at some of that.
Yeah, that'd be fine, clean that up, and then like I said, setting forth basically just the policies and procedures for each. That way you're clear on, hey, we've taken it this far, now as the administrator, I've got to take it from here from council to signing through the attorneys and everything, so that way it's just, everybody knows what's going on. Yeah, exactly.
Because from this thing you gave us, Lisa, I don't know if it was me or when it was, the economic development program.
The plan, is that the plan?
The plan. It says on page 6, number 8, a loan policy and procedure manual shall be prepared by the loan administrator and submitted to the city council for approval.
Okay, so the CARC doesn't. Unless you want to.
Well, you still need to, don't you, get through the
Yeah,
policies and
yeah,
procedures,
like I
as I
said.
say you do.
I
Maybe
think
not
it-
that portion of
I
it,
could
but-
be wrong, but wasn't it the CARC that presented those changes to the city council in the past? Jerry maybe would know.
For changes to the
Policy
plan and
procedures.
procedures? Yeah, those recommendations always came through the CARs. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was asking.
Yeah, they always come through the CARs after they reviewed it, investigated it, and make recommendations to the city council. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, those will be, I mean, because those will basically need to be reviewed.
If I
since
hear
we've
you
kind of
right now,
changed the
that's what's
structure.
pending now, right? That the CARs will meet
Yeah.
in order to, now with this agreement, plan and update, make recommendations to the council and get it all ironed out.
Yeah,
Isn't
right?
the CARC and the administrator involved? Are they both
part of that?
Yes.
She's
Oh,
on the
yeah,
committee.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That was the general idea, is
Yeah.
that myself and the CARC would
Okay.
meet again,
Yep,
and we'd start going through all
yep,
of
go
those
through it
things.
line by item and get all that language cleared
Yes.
up.
Yeah, basically all the members.
Yep.
of the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Like I said, I think that was the last step that we would like on, on our, so we've got that in office, so our manager knows.
What would be the estimated goal of the committee to maybe get to that point?
To be honest, I don't know, because right now we have one guy in Lincoln, one guy in Grand Island, somebody else is gone, another one went to Africa, and I'm here.
Recall them all. Just recall them. Make this happen.
So
All
I
right.
don't know when it'll
So-
happen, with school starting and activities, we'll just have to work it in when we can.
Well, again, because like I say, I know there's need out there, and that's why we need to continue to move forward and try to help you where we can. Because the funds are doing a lot of good where they're at right now.
All right. Any more comments, questions, concerns? Great.
So as far as like start date, I guess, I mean, I think we're ready to fulfill, if you want to make it clean and just say this, have this effective the 1st of September, or if that's cleaner. So
Well, I'm gonna indicate the 21st.
21st, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. If
Yeah,
you- I mean, just for clarity, if you want to, yeah, however we want to do it.
If we did, it's quarterly, so if we started September 1, that would make sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. And then as far as like an annual review, Lisa, what do you want to do to set, because as far as I know, is this basically an annual contract that we're doing? Is this, will need to be renewed every year, I assume, by both parties? So what's easier for you? Do you want to set this first one for, since we're starting September 1, what's the easiest part to do this annual review? Would it be
Well,
the
it's easiest to
July
run the
1
fiscal
meeting
year.
maybe? Yeah, so for October is your fiscal year start,
It
right?
starts October 1, the budget's passed in September, we do
Yeah.
the budget workshops in August,
So like
June,
July 1, that would be a start of a quarter, so like, and maybe in this first contract, June 30th, so that we would then potentially renew July 1, or what are you guys thinking?
I'd leave the contract for the full
Full
year,
year, and then,
but reevaluate,
Yeah,
it,
there
like
you
you
go.
say, next
That's-
June, and make
yeah.
adjustments at that time.
yeah,
Then we could extend it for a full year at that period.
that makes sense. That makes sense. If that works for you.
Get it, so it's.
That way,
okay.
just for, but yeah, just for planning purposes.
Because you guys have changed your fiscal year to match our fiscal year. So that makes sense for both parties.
No, other than that, I think we're good to go. Like I said, if the CRC committee will get the kind of policies and procedures in place for you guys to review and for us to review, that way we're good to go. So that's just kind of our set guidelines on how we're gonna manage, so.
So then our first quarter payment starts September 1.
Potentially.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think, like I said, I think we're ready to go.
Just so we're all on the same page here.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think we're ready to handle applications. We've already had a couple people inquire at the NCDC office. So I think we're getting infrastructure set up, we're moving offices, and we should have that in place in time to start fulfilling September 1, so that works.
More questions, concerns, comments, council, audience? Jerry, sir.
Just a comment.
Yes, sir.
Last November, I made an appeal, as we all did, with the reports, et cetera, that everybody get on board and just try and get this ship floated. And I commend the NCDC board, the city council, the city administrator, to get this worked out. I think we're on the right path, that's personal opinion, but I commend both parties for, let's get going. Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. No more concerns, questions, comments? All right. Item D, do you want, we need to take action on it? Okay. All right, I'll take a motion,
I'll make a motion that we accept the contract to the city of Ainsworth and the NCDC for this next year's contract.
Greg's got a second, good. Roll call.
Greg,
Aye.
Brad,
or on to item D, discuss and consider the recommendation by the Ainsworth Betterment Committee for approval of the following funding projects. Item I, $30,000 towards the City of Ainsworth's pool fund. And item double I, $3,000, $3,065.45 for a sit-stand lift for the Sand Hills Care Center. Double I. Or I.
The first one, this is something that the ABC started, I think, in 2012. Don't quote me on that, but, and then they've just subsequently done it every year. They make a motion and vote to allocate $30,000 each fiscal year out of the ABC fund and put it into kind of a new pool fund, if you will. So right now, with CD interest and some various other things, we're getting in the 450,000, close.
All right.
Pretty close, maybe not quite that much, but about $450,000. So this is just an extension of that the ABC has done to allocate another $30,000 within this fiscal year. Is that effort?
And this money hasn't been like touched, it's just been basically saved.
It's just sitting and collecting interest, basically, is what it's doing.
And then this, we don't use this money here, I mean, we just spent, you know, $84,000, we're not gonna use, money don't come out of here.
Correct.
That's already
It just
previous
sits
budget.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But, so the 450 was before this additional?
correct,
Oh, before, yeah.
correct.
But considering your pool study, where you're looking at new, could that 4,200 come out of there?
It could, but it, I mean, it's tied up in the CD.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you
I mean,
know,
ideally,
we'd have
if
to
you-
take
hopefully it's
penalty to
21.
withdraw.
Well, ideally, if you potentially qualify for that grant, there'd be your, there'd be your matching money.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a,
I didn't realize it built up that much.
it's a good little project. We kind of struck a pretty good deal on a CD rate where we were able to combine, you know, when you put them in, you know, you kind of have a little one here and a little one there, and we were able to really combine several of them, and so we're getting a pretty good growth on that now, considering the CD rates have been.
I'll make a motion, we approve the ABC's recommendation of 30,000 towards the pool fund.
I'll second it. First by Greg, second by Deb. Roll call.
Brad?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Item double I.
Yeah, double I. Okay, so this is a request from Stephanie Rucker, Sand Hills Care Center for a sit-to-stand lift. I attended the ABC meeting, so I'll try to do some justice. And you guys have in your packet, you have her explanation of that. They had 3 to start with the old facility. They replaced 2. They have a third one left that they wanted to replace. They asked the ABC to help fund that. The ABC did recommend approval of that. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So the ABC is actually taking the whole cost in, right? 'Cause
That's what they
They recommend, okay.
recommended.
They got, just in the last meeting, they got another grant from a foundation for one. They paid for one in-house. They had one that had gone completely down, one other one that was being replaced, and one that was still working. But, so I think they wanted one for each wing now that they're up into the high 20s on residents. From attending the last meeting, I think that was the, so this is actually one of 3. They paid for one in full, got a foundation grant for one, and then this application for a third.
So my personal observation, and it's just an observation, I guess I'm not speaking against it, is that, you know, this would be in a 50-50 interlocal agreement, this would be a wholly city-funded purchase. So whether that influences
Senate bill
the decision by the city council, but just, that was my observation.
Well, the county, for instance, the county is, you know, when you talk about the 50-50 split, the county is saving them a bunch of money by hauling away, they're redoing a portion of the driveway. So the county is putting in all the manpower to haul away all that concrete and labor and things, so, you know, that's.
And the city has
if
not
you-
been asked to.
Yeah, if you look at it that way.
Plus they want this.
Well, that's true too, yeah. But I did save, I mean, I think that took, I don't know how many thousands that took off the cost to
Sure.
not have to do the.
I wasn't for anything on that, so.
But don't they have employees turn it out?
Yep, yeah, I mean, they're paying for that.
But it reduced cost.
Yeah, yeah, it has, yeah, it was, I don't know how many thousands.
Still, it's on the positive side, which I'm glad to see, the Care Center, if we can help them. I make a recommendation to approve the 3,065.35 for the sit to stand lift, the Sandwich Care Center.
I'll second it. Dan, second. First by Greg. Roll call.
Deb?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Item E, discuss and consider
I
resolution.
have.
Oh,
I
sorry,
have a
sorry, John,
question.
sorry.
On your ABC committee, I seem to be, I'm glad this is passed. I don't want it to be a total reflection on that, but we're buying carpet for the schools, pieces and parts for this and that. I'm questioning what the focus of the money in the ABC committee is for. It seems like whatever was originally it seems to be quite an array, with the accusation of being almost a slush fund.
Well, this one in particular I read too, but this is included for medical type things.
That's fine. I don't want to point at that one in particular. I mean, in fact, some of the things that the ABC seems to be funding, I'm just questioning, what is their focus supposed to be? You know, because I think I can find some needs at the hospital if they want to buy lifts and whatever, and I say that in jest. The reality being, I'm more curious about what the focus of the ABC is supposed to be. The one that personally gets me is buying carpet for the school when the school can't seem to run their own budget, their own financing, but that might be a little bit of my personal opinion, a whole lot of it, in fact. But what's the purpose of the ABC committee and their focus? Is it a catch-all?
Well, no, we're not supposed to be. I mean, the ABC is a, local option sales tax, so it was voted in by the voters with a specified scope. The scope.
But some of those scopes have changed, and I'm wondering what the scope is now. Because at one time it was closing the city dump, financing this, when it was originally passed, the lagoon and sewage treatment, debt reduction.
That's a portion.
That's a portion.
Okay.
ABC is just a portion. So of that total 1.5% local option sales tax that we assess, 0.5% is LDA 40. And then the 1% is broken up several different ways. So 60% of the 1%, if you follow me, 60% of the 1% goes towards debt service. So that money can only be used for debt retirement, loans, bonds, that sort of thing. And then the remaining 40% of the 1% is split in half. 20% goes to general debt reduction, meaning just goes into the city's general budget to pay operating expenses. And then the other 20% goes to ABC.
John, I
So-
was on the ABC committee years and years ago. I think they still have high school students on.
They do too.
And it was pretty, it's basically for community enhancement. I mean,
Community
it's not real defined, specific on, yeah.
Community improvement, community betterment. The total dollar amount based off of our sales tax ends up being between $4,000 and $5,000 a month.
So in essence, it's 20% of the 1%.
Correct.
Okay. Because the one time I approached, when we had a street problem at the hospital, approached on some of this, and I got told that it wasn't for infrastructure. They didn't want that money to be going towards infrastructure. And that's why I'm just,
But it's not much different than your example you made before, where some of that went. You said it went to the school. It wouldn't be any different than going to the city for infrastructure. I mean, it's similar type deal.
But it was my understanding that those monies were not to go towards infrastructure, streets,
I understand.
such things. And yet we're buying carpeting and other things, and I guess I would just question why we don't back up and read or evaluate what the ABC, its scope seems to be broadening to me. And I'm not, and specifically, it's not this,
Good question for the committee.
and the chairman is?
The chairman is Dr. Evans.
Okay, thank you.
But don't they operate under what you tell them to do?
Yeah, they're just
They're
They're making recommendations.
Yes, but I mean,
We
you give
approve or
them,
not.
you give them their scope as to what they can cover, don't you?
The
Somebody
city
has
council
to.
ultimately,
Yeah.
either adopts their recommendation or denies it or modifies it.
Right.
The council has denied some, I think, in the years I've been covering meetings. There have been some applications that the.
But I've never known since I've been on.
More than the ABC is
Yes.
denied.
You're right.
So they have to get their direction from somewhere because they're appointed by the council.
But ultimately, the city council can override,
Yeah.
whatever recommendation the ABC makes.
Point being, the two need to stay aligned in what their scope and what they're wanting to do, and that's why, well,
Understand.
We'll get to that for you, John.
thank you.
Now, along the bright side, 2 meetings ago at the care center meeting, their board was advised that sometimes when the city gives something like the ABC funds, that is assessed against the city's contribution. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to do this. They were advised that might be a case, and they decided anyway to advance with it.
All right. Any more concerns, comments? Item E, discuss and consider resolution 19-07 for commencement of an interlocal agreement for cooperative public/governmental purchasing with the Educational Service Unit Coordinating Council, SUCC.
So this is just something, basically to give another advantage to the city of Ainsworth for cooperative purchasing for anything from office supplies to tables and chairs to furniture and basically anything and everything that the ESU can purchase for the schools. They have, I think as I understand it from Colleen Lentz, they have maybe broadened their scope, so it now includes municipalities, governmental, political subdivisions can get in on the cooperative. So you have to be a member of the cooperative to be able to utilize their statewide purchasing agreements that they have already bid out. It doesn't cost the city anything to be a member, we just have to sign their interlocal agreement. Once all of that is done and everybody agrees, we are assigned a username and password to get on to their online portal. So if we need to order cases of paper or tables for the conference center, we can hop on there and get pricing that's already been state bid. And, I don't know, it might open a window to purchase some things cheaper than we would get them otherwise. So I figured where it doesn't cost the city anything, sounds like a good idea to provide us another avenue.
This is a multi-million-dollar project, and it's something that I'm familiar with, and that, having represented the ESU, they let they meet, they have a committee, and it sets out the criteria as to what they want to bid on. And these bids are submitted on a nationwide basis from large corporations, large dollar amounts, so that they're getting huge benefits from quantity. And it's something you couldn't do by yourself or a few people getting together. All the schools in the state of Nebraska, all the ESUs are in it, basically.
I'm all for trying to find avenues to save the city money, going into contracts, if that's a you know, has an avenue and stuff. But also, we need to look at, you know, what is some of that stuff can we buy local? I'm all for, we need to buy what we can local. Even though it might cost us a few extra dollars, we need to weigh that. But we need to try to see what we can do to keep our money here in town and to support our local businesses. But, you know, if there's a huge difference, I can see that, but, you know, I'm all for, you know, going forward and getting, you know, that opportunity for like tables and stuff you probably can't buy here locally, but we also still need to not always look away from here buying our stuff.
I agree.
And I agree with Brad also, and I also think, I guess I consider him locally, but we've got one business out of town that comes and we buy stuff from, and he's a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So, you know, even though he doesn't live in town, he is a chamber member also.
And that is who we typically buy everything from.
Just so we don't.
So this
And we
is just
would-
this is just another option for us to
Yeah,
purchase.
we're not proposing to stop utilizing.
It's not locking us in that we have to buy stuff.
No, it's just like, for example, the other day, we had rented the conference center out, and one of the tables got ruined, got wet, so we had to order a table. You know, it's just nice to have another avenue to look, you know, compare pricing. You know, it's not costing us anything to have that opportunity.
Any more questions, concerns about that from council?
So you're not saying we would go 100%?
Correct, no,
We would consider other items?
yes.
Because I agree with Devin Brad, because that individual I think you're talking about, he does stuff, I think when they have different things locally, he supports locally.
He
And
does.
I think, I agree with Brad, we gotta support our local people too, we just can't walk away.
Yeah.
No,
They're the one paying part of the bill.
We've wound up in some of the purchasing groups where they require you with a certain percentage that you have to go with that purchasing group and you're gonna be a part of it. You're saying that that isn't so here. I just,
I have
we
asked.
found our hands
Right.
somewhat tied in trying to do what Brad, we agree with that.
That was
They
one of
get,
the.
they get alley if you buy outside your group.
Yeah.
Well, if they can't do that, then you're.
That was one of the questions that I had for them. And also another question I had was, do you have to do all your purchasing at one time, or can you do like, you need one table here or 2 chairs there kind of a thing? Can you just order as you need? And all the answers to those questions were yes. You know, it's very flexible. So,
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and contract with ESUCC for purchasing agreement.
First by Brad, second.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Skylar?
Aye.
Greg? Brad?
Yes.
Deb?
Item F, discuss and consider ordinance 1543, granting MPPD the non-exclusive right and franchise to erect, operate, and maintain an electrical light and power system in the city of Ainsworth.
So a copy of that agreement was provided to me, obviously, by our representative Kathy Cottle and our PPD. You can see that there was also a version from 2014 she included just for reference to show, basically at that time, I think the city council approved it as a 5-year agreement. The 25-year agreements are pretty standard from NPPD, not that I necessarily agree with them. But the reason they do that is because they, I think they use those as collateral then when they do their big expansion projects. Rod would probably know better than me back in 2014.
Yeah, they wanted a longer term back then too. The city council said, well, things are changing in the power world. You know, there's lots of different alternate sources that may come as an opportunity for the city to purchase power. And so they thought, you know, a 5-year period was adequate at a time. Nothing really has changed a lot in the 5 years, but there's a lot of wind power. Obviously, we've got wind power here. But the MPPD is in that, so that doesn't mean there wouldn't be a possible private company that could come in somewhere. They're trying to build in Cherry County. They're going to build down in Thetford, it sounds like. And so there's gonna be alternate sources of power. And I don't know if you wanna tie our hands for 25 years, that's an awful long time.
There's no incentive to do that, correct?
No.
So why wouldn't we do 25 years?
Can we just counter offer and say we'll stick with the 5?
I think so. I mean, when I talked to Kathy Cottle about it the other day, she didn't insinuate that it had to be 25-year. I mean, we've already signed the lease agreement with the NPPD. This is the franchise agreement. My question to her was, why aren't they the same agreement? Because it seems to me if you're leasing, obviously the franchise.
Why would your dates not coincide?
Correct. That was my question to her. She didn't necessarily have a good answer, but I guess I would agree that it seems to me that 5 years is a good number to stick with.
What's the lease term? You know, what
Well,
that is?
I remember they proposed 25 years in the lease term. I believe we argued that. Deb, you might remember.
I don't remember exactly, but I remember the 25 years. So that must be their standard, trying to get people to go in, but yeah, we agreed 5 was enough.
So we don't know what that maturity date is on that lease.
I don't off the top of my head. I'd have to.
Let's see, it was November 12th, so 5 years would be November 12th, wouldn't it? 14 to 19.
Well, the lease and the franchise don't coincide necessarily.
So we want to
Rob, do you recall that conversation?
No.
Okay. I
There was
remember
discussion.
discussing it, but I'd have to look back and see what the,
Which makes sense with action, doesn't it?
well,
Doesn't
I
matter.
would, I'm not sure it matters. It just means that we have to talk about it more than once.
So the request is for 25 years.
The request is for 25.
You want to counter offer?
We had done 5 in the past.
In the past, they tried to probably, back when they did this one, and they wanted to do 25 back then too, that's what they were trying to do. And they allowed us to go to 5 years.
But where this is one ordinance asking for 25, do we not need to deny that? And counter offer that,
Yeah.
and they come back to us with a new one, and we can
Correct.
reconsider?
Sure. That would make sense.
So we can get somebody in motion to deny the 25-year agreement and to renegotiate for a 5-year.
Is that the
Is that
proper
what-
way?
is that what
Rob?
we do,
I
Rob?
don't think there's any negotiation on it. I don't think the terms are gonna be any different other than the length of it. You probably pass this one and just change the 25 to 5.
It's our ordinance that is template.
That would put it back to NPPD then to have to either approve that you guys pass it.
So what we could do is make a motion to accept a 5-year contract with NPPD.
We could do it that way, just accept a 5-year contract.
Except for terms, but as a 5-year.
Yeah. Is there
Or
a motion?
accept the ordinance with that one exception.
So first by Gray, second.
Okay, hold it. We'll accept ordinance 1543, except for the term of the 25 years, would be changed to 5 years.
I'll second it.
First by Gray, second by Deb, roll call.
Craig?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
We're gonna have to have a little procedure here.
Oh, you got that.
Introducing ordinance number 1543.
Okay.
And if you intend to pass it today, then you're gonna have to waive 3 distinct readings.
That's that whole paper thing.
Do you want me to go get it?
Yeah,
Then we're at enough time?
no, it's a big one. I think I let Gray do it last time. I think I'll let him do it again this time.
No, we passed the buck.
Mhm.
So where NPPD maintains, operates, does everything with your electrical system. So in 5 years, they decide, well, we don't want to do that anymore, you're prepared to take it over?
That would be an option, or you could
Yeah.
probably negotiate with some other power source. We could put up our own window.
No, it's not so much the wholesale power, it's all the electrical lines, the poles, the little guys that are out there digging around every pole,
Maintenance.
down 20 inch, the maintenance of the system, and the street lights and all that kind of stuff.
If, by not going to 25-year, you know, we've been talking about the solar panel, do you think they'll drop that consideration, or
That's a separate.
that's a separate deal with PPD?
What's that, is that moved at all?
It's in the RFP phase.
Oh, okay, for
They
the
put it out.
companies
Yeah.
to build, so you have your site.
Yep. So.
What site did they end up selecting?
Well, the site that was proposed, that was kind of agreed upon by NPPD as a viable site, is actually just south of the south ball field. South side of the Cowboy Trail, the city owns a portion of that.
Infrastructure's there to support.
That's where they do 3
We looked at about 4 or 5 different sites, and that was the one that kind
They
of
don't
ticked
need,
all the balls.
they need no water or sewer, correct?
Yes.
That wouldn't work.
Where'd John go? Okay, you can't expand the hospital another quarter mile.
Well, you could, the county owns a good chunk of that there.
Valentine's going through that right now, Rob, on the great truck.
They maintain their own electrical system.
And they're just going through a major.
Yeah.
Is Cherry Todd?
No, well, as I understood it, they bought their wholesale power from NPPD. And then the guys with wind turbines somehow convinced 1 or 2 or whatever, some people that they shouldn't have a contract with NPPD, but just buy it on the open market. Because then they would build the wind towers and could sell it to them, whereas they couldn't if they had a contract with
Somebody's
them.
gonna introduce the ordinance and then its adoption and waive the 3 district.
But that's been 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Who owns that wind tower there by now? Is that the city?
Okay, yeah.
That I'm not sure.
And that's ordinance number.
1543.
So I'll rescind my motion. How about that?
Yeah, it's ordinance number 1543. Okay, so
You got it.
somebody's,
I think you've already done it. You've asked that ordinance be passed, right, by your motion.
Well, I did with the,
Yeah.
changing the term from 25 to 5
Yeah.
years.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, did you vote on that?
We did.
Yes.
and that's
Well, let's reconsider. Let's have a motion to reconsider that.
Reconsider or rescind it, which,
Oh, but you can do that too.
if we rescind it and just start over,
Yeah,
because
start.
that's what I'm saying, I rescind my motion.
Okay, rescind my second.
roll call.
Brad,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Skylar, Greg.
Now we need someone to introduce ordinance number,
1543.
introduce it and move its adoption and waive the 3 distinct readings.
We need a council member to do that.
Well, look at me.
Skylar.
I move to introduce.
Councilman Skylar Shane, introduce ordinance number 1543.
Yeah, and
Waive the 3 readings.
waive the 3 separate readings.
Okay.
And that it be changed to. and
That
it
follows.
Be for 5 years only.
Yes, and the minors.
Did you get all that done in the minutes?
And then the file is not in here. And then I can go ahead and read it.
And you read it.
All right. In an ordinance granting to the Nebraska Public Power District, a public corporation and political subdivision of the state of Nebraska, its successors, and assigns the non-exclusive right of franchise for a period of 5 years to erect, operate, and maintain an electrical light and power system in the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska for the purpose of of furnishing electrical energy to said city and the inhabitants thereof, limiting the maximum charges for the such energy, providing certain regulations with reference thereto, and all things incidental to the purposes thereof, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, directing the form of publication of this ordinance, and prescribing the time when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect.
And you're gonna move its adoption, you moved its adoption, right?
We just have a second.
You
Yes,
moved its
second.
and you moved its adoption.
Yes. I move its adoption.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brad. Roll call.
Deb?
Aye.
Skylar?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
All right, item G. Discuss and consider resolution 19-08 for the League Association of Risk Management, 2019 to 2020 renewal.
Okay, so last year we moved for the 3-year commitment, 180-day notice at 5% discount.
I think we do this every year, don't we?
We
Go ahead and
do.
go with that.
It's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, but that always gives us the best deal.
So I think the way that they've created this, the best way to explain it is that if you want to go out for bid every 3 years, this lets you whittle it down, you know, until you get to that 90-day notice, 0 discount, you go out for bid, and then you start the process over again. So if you have no intention of going out for bid, I think you can stay at the 3-year 5% discount mark. That's what we did last year, that's, I think, what we did the year before.
I think all you're doing is tacking one more year on it, basically, so you're continuing out 3
Just
years.
renewing it, saying you're not going to go out for bid.
By the way, look, too, this covers our insurance and stuff like that, as far as our vehicle.
Workers' comp, general automobile, general liability, errors and omissions.
Rod, you might remember, I don't know if Lisa was here yet, the council did bid this one time that I can remember, Rod,
You
you
know, I
might
wondered
too.
that last year.
And the alarm bids were substantially, in fact, it was hard, they had a hard time, I think Christie might have been here at the time, but they had a hard time even finding other bidders, other companies to bid it. And alarm was by far, I mean, it's like, it wasn't even close. Because I,
Wasn't anybody else that would.
yeah, or that they didn't want to write, basically. I don't know how many years ago that was, but that was the last time I remember actually going out for bid.
Is there any more questions and concerns?
And maybe I'm missing it in here and something, just, but what's it going up a year? Has there been an increase from the previous years or anything, just a general
Yeah,
increase?
it's general, I mean, it's nothing staggering.
Okay.
Last year, I think it was 7% general, 3.5% worker comp. I think this year worker comp, if I remember right, it was not going up, but general liability went up marginally.
So it don't really take an increase like health insurance and stuff like that, does it? Just,
Right.
it's kind of stated.
You know, and it's a pool, so a lot of it has to do with how many claims were filed. If they had large claims, I can tell you for a fact that the city of North Platte had a substantial claim for workers' comp. And that kind of threw things for a little bit of a loop. On top of that, the League of Nebraska Municipalities, LARM, which is kind of a spin-off that was created by the league, they are in litigation over who is the proper board for LARM, and this cost the member pool. The last financial statement I saw was around $400,000. So some of this assume is pertinent to that as well.
So for our community, if we, you know, as far as injuries and stuff like that, by not having injuries, it does keeping it up a little bit, or to build ostracized community.
And Lisa, do they, if they've had a year with fewer claims, do they give you a dividend check back? As long as I've done that in the past on this. NACO does it with the counties or that they, NERMA.
We don't on general liability, on workers' comp we do.
Okay, I didn't know, because some, you know, you always see if they give back a check to the.
Every year, we do a workers' comp audit, and so whatever we paid in, if there's a differential in that, at the end of the year, we get a credit back. They don't necessarily do that on general liability.
So what's your recommendation?
Well, I don't know what the council's thoughts are on the litigation, if you're concerned about that at all. If you're not, I would recommend the 3 or 5% discount. I've been watching it, not gonna lie, I'm a little concerned about it, but,
Sounds like might have a lot of.
I don't foresee it being resolved within the next year. Potentially it could be there in the middle of some court proceedings.
So we're looking at a contract, a 3-year contract for $77,322.58.
Yes, but as it stands, I mean, there are some pool members that are going out for bid. The bigger the pool, the stronger, the better your rate, so I don't foresee, of course you don't know until you go out for bid, but I don't foresee that we get a better rate anywhere else, quite frankly.
And that's a 3-year price, not a 1-year price. You pay that 3 times, right? Is that correct?
No, it's excuse me, it's a 1 year.
That's when you pay that,
Yes.
okay. So
Yeah.
it's not that for 3 years.
Correct.
Okay.
They guarantee it will.
It's likely, yeah. And last year, if you remember, we did enlarge our, I think, errors and omissions and general liability up to the $5 million per occurrence, because that was to put it in compliance with state statute and cost was minimal. So we should be, at least on our deductibles and our policies, we should be in compliance with what statute allows.
Do you want to entertain a motion? Questions, concerns first?
You're saying 3 or 5% be that.
That would be my recommendation.
A motion from council?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the 3-year 5% discount rate with farm again this year.
First by
Renewal of the insurance.
First by Deb, second?
And pass resolution 19.
Okay, and pass resolution 19-08.
Second. Second grade. Roll call.
Deb?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
Greg? Brad?
Yes.
4 on that.
Next meeting, we're gonna move from September 11th to September 18th due to personnel issues, conflicts. So it'll be 5 o'clock on September 18th.
And I just have one question. I think I'm confused. I had somebody call me either the end of last week or Monday, I don't know which, I can't remember. But they were gonna call the city office and get on the agenda. And when I got the agenda, they weren't on it. So I called today and said, did you ask? And she said, yeah, but she was told that she had to be on the agenda by Friday or it was too late. But I thought you had up to 24 hours before.
We're gonna go ahead, I'll go ahead and address it right now. We're going to centralize or standardize everything, so it's gonna be Friday, everything that needs to be in by Friday, it needs to be at the next city council meeting, or that following Wednesday, everything needs to be in on Friday. I don't know who you're talking about, but we did make an exception this one.
No, not that one.
Okay.
The one I'm talking about, she got on next month's schedule for her organization.
Okay,
Or she said she wasn't. But
okay. Oh, yeah, and we
Okay,
can talk
now-
about that later.
now, can we change that stuff without going through the council?
What's that?
Changing it from 24 hours?
Well, that's what we've kind of agreed upon as a council,
What
but we
we
just,
request is have all the information information supplied to the council
Okay.
by Friday
If-
prior to
All
the
right.
council meeting. We didn't say anything about not being able to put anything on the agenda
Okay.
or not, because I think in the statute 24 hours.
Statute's 24 hours, I just think
Okay.
if you're wanting to be on the agenda to present something to the city council, it's gonna require action. That was my understanding
Right,
of
and
the
that's why we were
conversation.
requesting to have the information Friday before
Friday
council meeting.
before.
So we had time to get it to us, so we could review it, ask questions or whatever.
Right.
So if there is things that we need to be taking action upon, I think we should have it in by Friday. If it's something that needs to address the city, just as the council.
Well, and
Yeah.
And
sometimes,
again, I'll defer to Lisa on
And
this.
what they were gonna do, it wasn't to take action, they just wanted to inform us. So it wasn't any action item.
Okay.
So I mean, unless, I don't know, is there a difference that
Well, that's what we'll,
we have to ask?
sometimes when
or-
people want to be put on the city council agenda, sometimes those things can be handled administratively. Sometimes the staff can work with those citizens to, resolve that issue or have those discussions or entertain more research before it comes to the city council. So that's another, I think, best practice. If the city staff had a little bit more time to review the topic and converse with the individual who wants to be put on the agenda, a lot of things can be handled administratively so that it doesn't, every little thing doesn't always necessarily have to come to the city council. So it's sort of a phasing process, I guess, if you will. And I did talk to that individual, and I think they are wanting action, is kind of the impression that I got from her. They've talked to the Brown County Commissioners, or they're going to be following up with the county commissioners as well. And so it's a little bit more of a coordinated effort, looking for some unification to, and so when I talked to her yesterday, I think the idea was that maybe the city and the county commissioner maybe need to visit a little bit and.
She told me today that she wanted to go back to the commissioners
Yeah,
after
she
she
told
talked
me that
about it
too.
too. But she said, what she told me, which could be different, was that she just wanted to make us aware, of what's going on and what they were maybe thinking about.
The other side of it, if we postponed our council meeting for a week, if they really gonna get on the agenda, they should have been on a week ago.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Well, and she
that all
called
has to
ahead.
take into consideration.
Right, but she had called me and said, when is the next meeting? So that was, I mean, it used to be we could say second Wednesday, but we can't all the time.
Yeah, one of them was related to the NCDC, we just weren't aware of that that's what you guys were moving to. So, the one on your response, you said you put an attachment, I don't think the attachment got on there. So if you just send us that attachment, if it's a request form, then we can keep it.
And that's something.
And that's, I mean, that's not, I don't
Talking
think
about-
you hate that being an issue.
Yeah, talking about it, a lot of cities do have a form. If somebody wants to be put on the agenda, they kind of fill it out, and that gives us good information if we need to ask additional questions. If they're wanting action, or if it's gonna be a request for expenditures of funds, and so we kind of can do the discovery questions so that we can inform you better, and we're not caught off guard by the conversation at the council meeting. And so, we have a form created. I think Lindy's putting it on the website if you haven't already. And so for future reference now, if people call and
So this is a new implementation. that you're doing.
administratively.
Yeah, I can see it, so every person is the same, or who it is, they get treated the same way, they get the same information.
But I
the
kind
same
of think we
form.
should maybe get it in the news or something so that everybody knows.
It's on the website now. We can do a Facebook post.
Like even if they put it in their news articles today so that people, because a lot of people will read their stuff, but they won't see it on the computer, But that way at least everybody has a chance to say it, and we can say, well, it was in the paper this day, or it was on the radio, or.
Well, and for me, it's a organization tool to try to help streamline.
As I've been,
Just kind of threw me for a loop, so I thought it was 24 hours.
as I've been in the office a lot more since I started school and whatnot, the girls get really busy towards Friday and things get a little hectic when we want to do a meeting. So I think just giving them a heads up one more time. If it's something that needs to be voted on, I think it should be in Friday. If we need to take any kind of action, stuff like that needs to be on Friday. It's just to come to council and discuss something. I don't have a problem with them adding them to.
Well, by
to the-
statute, if there's something of an emergency nature, that allows us, within the 24 hours. But this is just kind of a tool to help us streamline things and keep things a little consistent.
Are you guys all good with that, the 24 hours? It's not a,
I just want to know if somebody calls me what to tell her, so.
okay.
Yeah, if it's not a voting thing, or not an
It could
action
be
thing.
at 24 hours of order. If it's something that requires a vote or city council action or whatnot, it needs to be in by Friday with a form.
And we just like have time to read it first.
Yeah, exactly. With that being said, I think that's good for tonight, unless anybody has any more questions or comments.
I do have a question. Is there an update on the, on the investigation that was underway? Has anybody talked to it? Is it done?
They're still investigating. I've had a couple of email exchanges with the state auditor's office in terms of some questions that they've had throughout the process, but otherwise they don't have any final report or comment yet from them. My understanding is that when they are finished, they will release a report to the city council.
Thank you for that question, Betsy. Anything else? No? Anybody else?
Has there, how's the contract with the law enforcement contract went? I kind of expect that to be on the agenda today since it expired July 1 or something.
Yeah, the committee needs to meet again.
Okay.
We gotta organize that. Greg was out of town, so we're, now he's back, we'll try to get a meeting set up.
We met last week, so you know, and we requested some additional information.
Okay. Like I said, I was expecting it to be on the agenda and I didn't see it, so I just thought I'd ask. So, no, I understand.
Well, our way, wouldn't it?
We were passing around a folder of information to kind of get everybody up to speed. It has been a little bit of a slow process, but I think we can get another, meeting organized, hopefully maybe next week, to get everybody together.
We thought you wanted to go for it, Rod.
Yeah, right.
Sheriff Rod.
Yeah.
All right, well, we can go ahead and call this meeting adjourned at 19:07:06.
1976.
All right, thank you for everybody for coming. Have a great evening.
Who wants this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Skylar, did you get to, yeah?
Ready to do it.
Okay.